All right, Broncos country, we are live. What a win for the Denver Broncos, guys. We just upset the Buffalo Bills on the road. We went into their house and got a win, 24-22, walk-off field goal for Will Lutz. A win that was certainly a nail biter and a lot closer than it probably should have been, considering the Denver Broncos forced 4 turnovers. But at the end of the day, Broncos country, a win is a win, and this is a win that can completely turn around the season for the Denver Broncos. Just absolutely insane. We got Jess in the house saying like. Thank you so much. David, this obviously probably came in a little beforehand, but they did have their struggles in the second half, that's for sure. But ultimately, at the end of the day, Denver Broncos did enough to win. Buffalo Bills gifted them one there with that 12-men penalty. Will Lutz missed the first crack at the game-winning field goal. But that 12-men penalty was a huge difference maker. We got Vaughn Miller Express in the house. Good to see you, Vaughn. Hope you are doing awesome. And by the way, Vaughn, welcome to the Mod Club. You've been a big supporter here on the channel for a long time, and it's time that you get rewarded for that. There you go, buddy. Thank you so much for everything, Vaughn. You can do bot patrol if you want to, or you don't have to. It could just be a badge of honor, however you feel about it. Elway2K saying easy win. David says, I'll take a 3-game win streak 100%. We taking the Browns game too. I sure hope so, man. But first we got to get through Minnesota next week, who has been an extremely hot football team. So that's going to be the first big hurdle that the Denver Broncos are going to have to overcome here. But man, guys, the Buffalo Bills have played down to their competition for most of the season, and they find another way to do that here, and this is a huge win for us, guys. We'll start breaking it down here in a bit. We'll get press conferences in, all that good stuff. Oh yeah, Kool-Aid Man says that was a roller coaster, but go Broncos 100%. That was not an easy win. They played like crap in the third quarter. They did, but to credit this team, previous instances of the Denver Broncos would have completely crumbled and they would not have been able to eke out this win. That just goes to show that the Denver Broncos are a well-coached football team, especially when it comes to situational football. Also, we saw that with how well that the field goal to end the first half was executed as well. Both times we had to run the field goal unit on, and that was just really great special teams execution. That's the effect of Mike Westhoff. That's the effect of Sean Payton. I mean, absolutely awesome execution there. How bad was that win? How bad was that wind? I heard them talking about it, but it didn't look that bad. Was it worse than it looked? I mean, the wind definitely played a factor. It definitely did, especially I feel like on Will Lutz's missed PAT. That's one where, or the first missed PAT. The second one was just a bad hold by Riley Dixon. But the first one, it definitely looked like the wind caught it. Yeah, absolutely, Vaughn. Absolutely. You definitely deserve it. I told you, Allen, 2 picks, Jim says. Yep, one of them to Justin Simmons, the other one to Fabian Moreau. And the one to Fabian Moreau was a really bad throw, late throw to the outside on, I believe it was a sail route to Gabe Davis. But again, guys, this is just one that can completely change the overall trajectory and direction of the season. If we come into stats here, guys, Russell Wilson, 24 for 29, 192 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen, 15 for 26, 177 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Javonte Williams, 21 carries for 79 yards. James Cook, 12 carries, 109 yards. He really broke out a couple of nice runs. Leading receiver on the day was Cortland Sutton, 8 receptions for 53 yards. We come over here. Denver dominated the time of possession, 37-21 in comparison to 22-39. 4 turnovers for the Bills. That's now 9 turnovers in 2 games for Denver consecutively. Absolutely huge. 300 total yards for the Denver Broncos, 369 total yards for the Buffalo Bills. Denver had opportunities to pour even more points on the Buffalo Bills, quite frankly, but they just weren't able to execute in some of these situations. They shot themselves in the foot with penalties here. I never even transitioned over to the screen, but they shot themselves in the foot with penalties on multiple occasions. Several of their drives were forced to end in field goals. We think of this first drive right here where they had a bad false start penalty from Mike McGlinchey. They had another false start on this second drive where they punted. The big touchdown here, obviously. Excellent play creation. Russell Wilson to Courtland Sutton on the corner of the end zone. That was just a beautiful, beautiful vintage Russell Wilson play right there. And then obviously the well-executed field goal going into halftime. The only real negative drive Denver had for the most part was obviously that fumble drive where Courtland Sutton fumbled it after Russell Wilson put a really, really bad ball on him. It was to the wrong shoulder. Courtland Sutton had to turn upfield and tried to get the first down, and he was unable to do so. And then ultimately, we got the touchdown drive there, a long extended drive coming off of a Buffalo turnover. And so that was a big, big drive for us. We allowed Buffalo to score basically on that last drive, still giving Denver enough time to go and kick the game-winning field goal. And that whole operation was executed to a T. So overall, man, I'm really, really pleased with this victory. There's a lot of stuff to clean up, but that film room session definitely feels a lot better coming off of a win as opposed to coming off of a loss. We did see some frustrating play calling at times, the end around to Marvin Mims. Russell Wilson, I think there's still a fair conversation to be had about potentially moving on from him this offseason, designating him as a post-June 1st cut, which would make the cap hit a little bit easier to stomach. But at the end of the day, man, this is such a feel-good victory for the Denver Broncos, as ugly as it was. We have not been able to win these ugly games the past several years under the past several regimes. This win tells me that we got the coaching hire right, and that is the most important thing of all. Denver Broncos win 24-22. All right, guys, we were in video making mode right there for that first one. So we got Jess saying, I love the resiliency and how Russ always stays composed and never gives games up. 100%. That's one of Russ's best qualities. He's always got that glass half full mindset. He's never going to give up. He's never going to fold under pressure, anything like that. He can be a warrior out there. He's corny and shaky at times, but he is a warrior out there. Pat Surtain was awesome. I nearly got Javonte right on the yardstick. If it wasn't for Mims' Rager return, the game was lost. 100% shout out to Marvin Mims. Big returns have been a big, big part of his game, as much as he struggled at times on offense. But shout out to Marvin Mims. Game MVP for this one. Right off the bat, I can think of someone like Jaquan McMillan, who has just been an absolute revelation. That first play of the game, he punched the ball out of James Cook's hands and then recovered his own fumble. Absolutely filthy stuff right there. He was really, really good in coverage today. So, huge shout out to Jaquan McMillan. Justin Simmons was awesome. Alex Singleton played really, really well. The defense had some moments where they did give up some yardage and some big plays to the Buffalo Bills, but they rallied when they needed to. And on that last drive, I really feel like they kind of let Buffalo score in order to give Denver sufficient time to go down and kick the game-winning field goal, and it worked really well. Jess says, got to get back to the nerd work, but happy to be able to celebrate with you all. Have a great night, Gage. Keep the faith, and let's keep it going. Let's go, Jess. Have a great night. Hopefully your exam goes well. I'm wondering now how we go forward on a 3-game winning streak against Minnesota. I mean, it does feel almost like a bit of a trap game for Denver. Minnesota's been playing really, really good football. Josh Dobbs has been electric. He's provided a big spark to that offense after Kirk Cousins went down. It's a matchup that I'm definitely going to be nervous about moving forward. But at the same time, man, if Denver can pick up a 4-game winning streak, huge, and I mean nuclear huge. This win for Denver now gives us a bit of leeway moving forward, actually. We can afford to basically lose 2 of our remaining games, and those 2 games can be the Detroit game, which I feel like we probably will lose, and then the Houston game. We've got to take care of business against Minnesota. We've got to take care of business against Cleveland. We got to take care of business against the Chargers twice. We got to take care of business against the Patriots, and we got to take care of business against the Raiders. And if we can do that, guys, the Broncos could be in prime position to make the playoffs and get in as the 7th seed after starting the year 1-5. I mean, there are a lot of teams right now that are kind of starting to fall off the rails in the AFC. Buffalo, obviously, this was a massive loss for them. This was a game that they really needed to have. Now they're at 5-5. Cincinnati's kind of having some struggles. Obviously, a big upset loss to Houston yesterday. Baltimore with a big loss. Jacksonville. So there's a lot of teams out there that are not playing up to their potential in the AFC, and this gives the Denver Broncos a very clear and obvious opportunity to capitalize on that and turn this into a complete turnaround for this season. It really is. There's some tough opponents on there. You think about Cleveland, who has a daunting defense. You think about Houston, but there are also some very winnable games on that slate. Chargers have the tendency to charger, quite frankly. Obviously, the Patriots are complete and total poverty. Raiders should be a win, at least on paper. Minnesota, I'm not sure what we're going to get with them. They're kind of a frisky opponent right now. So, again, guys, there's a chance here for Denver to really make a run at this thing. You think about the Detroit Lions last year, who started the season off 1-6, completely turned their fortunes around, and were for one win away basically from making the playoffs. If they had lost their game against the Carolina Panthers on Christmas Eve last year, they probably would have made the playoffs. So if Denver can go on a similar kind of run as Detroit, I know a lot of people in Broncos country will call it a successful season, even if we don't make the playoffs, just because of where we started and where we would ultimately end up. I know a lot of people, myself included, would call that a successful season, but I know that breaking the playoff drought is the ultimate goal for this season for the Denver Broncos. And guys, I actually think there's a realistic chance we can do it. Tony, thank you so much, Tony Wright, for $10. You rock, Gage. Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate it. Helps keep the lights on here on Denver Broncos Syndicate. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Jim says Vikings will be tough. They definitely will be tough. I mean, they've been a very frisky opponent. They had a very similar rough start to their season as the Broncos. They kind of were able to get their stuff together a week earlier than Denver did. Unfortunately, Kirk Cousins going down kind of hurt things a little bit, but even in spite of that injury, they've maintained their winning streak. Josh Dobbs has been really, really great for them. I mean, his play creation ability with his legs has been phenomenal. Like, really, really phenomenal. So it's going to be a tough opponent for sure next week on Sunday Night Football. I bet the NFL is pretty happy they didn't flex that game out of prime time. That's going to be a really good game. I think a really exciting game. Do the Vikings get Jettis back? I think he might be back this week. That'll obviously be a big boost for the Vikings offense if they can get arguably the best wide receiver in football back in Justin Jefferson. So that's one situation to monitor for sure. But boiling this conversation back to the Denver Broncos and how they've kind of handled their business over the last couple of weeks, I mean, this is why the Denver Broncos didn't make any moves at the trade deadline and why they weren't sellers, because they were confident in their ability to turn their fortunes around and get the season back on track. And sure enough, that's what happened. A report from Adam Schefter came out earlier today that the Denver Broncos got offered, I believe it was from like 7 teams for Pat Surtain, and they told him no. They told all 7 of those teams, no, we're keeping Surtain in the building. We feel that he's the best corner in the NFL. They got offers for Jerry Jeudy. I believe it was a 3rd and a 5th round pick. That's what Shefty said. But the Broncos felt that Jeudy brought more value to the team being on the team as opposed to bringing in just a 3rd and a 5th round pick. The way the Broncos have played over the last couple of weeks, getting some of their bugaboos figured out on defense. Offense certainly was not ideal today, but they executed it in the key clutch moments, especially on that game-winning drive and the drive before that. So it's not how you start. At the end of the day, it's how you finish. And the Denver Broncos started this game rough, and they started this season really rough with a 1-5 start. Obviously, it all culminated in that 70-20 embarrassing blowout down in Miami. But the Denver Broncos are a much different team now than they were back then, and I was certainly pounding the table for the Broncos to tear things down because I didn't see a pathway out of this. now there's a pretty clear pathway for the Denver Broncos to actually make something out of this season, playoff run or not. And that's why the Denver Broncos ultimately decided not to trade players away. That's why Pat Surtain's still here. That's why Justin Simmons is still here. That's why all of those guys are still here. And hats off to Sean Payton, hats off to George Payton, hats off to ownership for staying pat, staying true, not listening to all the outside noise from fans and media alike. I'm certainly guilty of it. They're staying the course, and it's starting to pay off for them. They've got a lot of stuff they have to clean up, certainly. Penalties, self-inflicted wounds, some turnovers here and there. Russell's got to play better, but at the end of the day, I can tell the Denver Broncos are very happy with where they are right now, and I'm happy too. I'm happy to be wrong, and I'm happy that the Denver Broncos didn't make any of those moves. That had to be one of the best catches by Courtland Sutton that I've ever seen, 100%. Just the awareness on that play to be able to toe tap and get the play down. In fact, guys, you know what? We're going to do a live film study right now, guys, of that play. We'll throw it up as its own little individual video here as well. That could be a fun little play here. Certainly, Russell Wilson had some plays on the day where he struggled. But there were also plenty of other plays where he just looked like vintage Russell Wilson out there. It's going to take me a second to find the play. And then after that, guys, we'll go ahead and bring in Sean Payton for his press conference. So that's what we'll go ahead and do here in just a minute. I'm trying to find that Russell Wilson touchdown because this is something right here that's just vintage Russell Wilson. Okay, guys, here it is. I'll bring it in just 1 second here. All right, guys, so we got a live film study right here. Russell Wilson with just some beautiful play creation. Courtland Sutton with a touchdown. He's matched up wide over here. He's going to be crossing across the field right here. Russell Wilson in trouble in this situation. Has to make a guy miss in number 90 and does just that. And you see right here when he goes to make this throw that he sort of has to launch this one off of his back foot, but he does. And it's just a beautiful throw. Courtland Sutton able to drag both feet down. I mean, Courtland Sutton's effort on this one is just absolutely phenomenal. This is the vintage Russell Wilson stuff that you just love to see, man. Able to spin away right there. Just got to make a pause so we don't get a copyright claim. Love this all across the board. These are plays right there that do give you hope that Russell Wilson can turn this season, that Russell Wilson can be the long-term answer at quarterback. There were other plays that certainly didn't give you that mindset, but this is one of them right there if you are the Denver Broncos. All right, guys, so what I'm going to go ahead and do here, I have to go grab my headphones. Oh, didn't want to see that, but I have to go grab my headphones, guys, and then we'll go ahead and bring in Sean Payton here and his press conference, and we'll see what Sean has to say about this victory. Sutton went and got that. Yeah, that was just a great job by Sutton. And maybe Russ was just throwing to a spot and hoping a guy would run under it, but to his credit, that's exactly what happened. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and find Sean Payton's press conference here, and we'll bring that in momentarily.
We felt the...
Okay. Just bear with me here for 1 second, guys. All right, here we go. Here is Sean Payton, post-game press conference following the Denver Broncos victory over the Buffalo Bills.
A good win on the road. We felt the turnover margin was going to be significant. and it was. Normally, if you finish +3, I think we were +3 tonight.
Yeah, they were +3.
You'd win by more, but
Had 4.
we
lost
hurt
1.
ourselves offensively, penalties. I mean, the first half, there were 4 different times we were third and 10 or more, and there's a penalty on the drive that's putting us in those spots. So we got to clean that up. I was proud of how we fought and hung in there. Defensively, we did a lot of good things against an explosive team. They're a tough team to beat here, especially when they come off a loss. I think they're 33-1.
And that's why this victory was so big for us.
With this quarterback and this head coach when they come off a loss, but it's pretty good. And we felt good about the plan the week leading up to it. And so we'll have a lot of good tape to watch, and we'll stay here tonight, leave in the morning. You guys can write about that. That'll be different, but that's kind of what we do. We don't want to get home at 4:30 in the morning. So
don't blame them.
But a good team win. Any questions?
But it is going to be a short week, obviously, playing on Sunday night.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because that's kind of how things happen. My problem with it isn't that generally north of 17 seconds, it's pretty easy. The one little trick with it sometimes is when you think you might have a first down and you're not sure, you send them out, and then you do have a first down. You got to learn to clock it with that group. But it was pretty easy time-wise. Yeah, my biggest challenge is the special teams coaches call it hurricane. I'm used to calling it Mayday for 20-some years, and so I'll yell Mayday initially and then get it right. But they executed it well.
Okay, that's just kind of a little thing like that, Got to clean up those communication blunders.
But we managed the clock well at the end of the half.
That's a growing pain.
With points, and certainly at the end of the game. We knew crossing midfield, needing a field goal, we were going to get some heavy pressure looks. And sure enough, we got cover 0, took a sack, and then got 0 again. And Russ made a good play, giving Jerry a chance to go get it.
And I think that one was intentionally underthrown
as a
to
coach,
draw the PI call.
You're mindful
and
of
it
the
worked
score,
out brilliantly.
knowing you've got these takeaways, and yet it's only a 7-point game. We can't miss a field goal. We can't drop a snap. That resulted in 4 points. So there'll be a lot
you
for
can
us to
hear
clean up,
Club
again,
Dub back
road
there.
win.
They are blasting music. Something the Saints did after a big win on the road. Club Dub is going wild tonight, baby.
It's the NFL.
Hackett would blow that game 100%.
Guys, there's a little
100% Hackett would blow that game.
I keep saying it. There's that fine line between
Love
a
this,
groove
man.
and a rut.
Love this.
You gotta bow up a little bit, and you gotta demand it of each other at practice during the week. You win during the week, and I felt like we've been practicing during the week a lot better, and if you do that, you demand that of each other, then Sundays become a little bit less chaotic.
Sean, you mentioned earlier this week that you've been impressed with Russ's off-script ability. Some of the flips that he had, like to Samaje, to kind of get that last drive going.
Yeah.
Just what your overall impressions?
Well, he sees coverage right away, and for him, a lot of times it's the cavities in the rush. It's not just dropping back and throwing over the rush, and so Samaje, the backs being available. This is a zone defense tonight, so we felt like there were going to be a lot of underneath throws.
Which there were.
And that can kind of vary week to week, but that was important certainly in that drive.
When you don't play for 15 days, and then the first snap of the game, Tremont rips the ball out, creates a takeaway, you sort of kind of respect maybe right from the outside.
Look, I said this
I believe
to you guys,
Humphrey did get one catch.
These guys cause fumbles at the top of the league with anyone, the team we just played. And when you watch it, and you keep watching it, you start getting mad at yourself because it's something that's being coached and emphasized. And so I think those guys got tired
Have
of
a
me
great night,
talking
Vaughn.
about
Thank
it.
you so
And
much for tuning
defensively,
in. Great
we were on
win
the other
for us,
end
man.
of it. And that was the difference tonight. Four takeaways. You finish +3, you're winning 98% of your games.
Yep.
significant. I felt like we played a lot of the game on their end of the field. And so what happens when you do that? The mistakes are magnified when they make them, and they're not as glaring when you make them.
What's your message to the team moving forward in the second half of the season?
Yeah, it's a little too far out for me. I mean, I didn't divide it in half. I understand the question. We just talked about the game tonight. We'll kind of shift to the next opponent. It's probably something that I addressed during this bye, even though it wasn't right in the middle, just, hey.
I agree, WVZ. P. Ryan was a big part of this game.
This is
we'll talk about him a little bit more in a second.
And so, we're playing better, but we've got a lot of work to do.
You had some extra point adventures where any way to get those, with the drop bomb snap.
I just finished talking about it, meaning I just said it. You want me to elaborate? We dropped the snap.
Yeah.
Yep, he did. It was a bad hold by Riley Dixon.
For that last chaotic run on the field.
It's not chaotic. It's not chaotic. It's really not. I mean, they had 12 guys on the field, but we do it all the time. I mean, sometimes when you're doing that as opposed to coming out of a huddle thinking about it, it's a little bit easier, but it's not really that difficult. Go ahead. Whoa.
Your thoughts on the Cortland Sutton's touchdown?
Sean is feisty
Yeah,
tonight.
it's two of them now. From our bench, it was the same area in the end zone of Kansas City. Obviously, that was a significant play because that's the difference. It's a 4-point play, right? That was third down. So, he's got great hands in traffic, and we didn't have a good angle on it, but good play by him.
Coach, your roller coaster of emotions right down at the end. How fast did you see that flag on the field after the field goal was no good?
I didn't see the flag. I saw something stop. I didn't know what the play stop was for, but I heard the whistles, and then they said 12 on the field. I couldn't tell if we made it or not. Did we push it right? Yeah.
They did. Yeah, Will Lutz did miss it. Just an absolute lucky break there. That was
things.
huge.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I don't think we can stress that enough, just how huge that 12-min penalty was there, man. Denver literally was going to lose that game. Will Lutz missed the game-winning field goal, and they had 12 men on the field, did Buffalo. I believe that was the second time in the game that Buffalo had 12 men on the field, and that literally cost Buffalo because Will Lutz missed the kick, and obviously 12 men, 5-yard penalty, got a chance to redo it, and he was true the second time around. Huge. But going back to the conversation of Jaleel McLaughlin versus Samaje Perine, because I see Jeff's comment here, or previously it was WVZ that said Perine was a big part of the reason why we won. I feel like we need to use him a lot more. And then Jeff added on to that and said McLaughlin is good, but Perine gives us the same type of offense without killing Williams. Also, can't have the same offense if Williams is hurt. And I completely agree with that sentiment, man. At the end of the day, Jaleel McLaughlin, as much as I like him as the self-proclaimed president of the Jaleel McLaughlin fan club, he's got a tendency where, if he's on the field, he's probably getting the ball, and defenses have clued in on that. We saw Jaleel McLaughlin get shut down for 1 to 2 yard gains or even no gain at all on a few plays, and that was because the defense keyed into it. The offense, in my opinion, needs to do a better job schematically, and this falls on Sean Payton of setting up play-action plays with Jaleel McLaughlin on the field. Maybe leak a tight end out and try to get him lost in the trash and then leak him out to the other side of the field off a little bootleg action. That's something that we can do. Obviously, kind of like WZA the Great is saying here, Jaleel can't block. He's a liability in pass protection, and that's a problem. It's kind of the same issue that a lot of people gave Philip Lindsay, was that he was just kind of one or two dimensional whenever he was on the field, and there were just deficiencies in what you were able to do with him whenever he was on the field. And unfortunately, I think that kind of rings true here. Samaje Perine has done some really nice stuff when given the opportunity. He's a great outlet for Russ out of the backfield to dump it out the ball on 2-minute drills. He's done a really great job of that. And in the run game, I think there's a chance that the Broncos should pivot away from Jaleel McLaughlin a little bit and pivot a little bit more towards Samaje Perine, who's earned those touches, in my opinion. That's not saying that you completely abandon Jaleel, because he's still an explosive playmaking threat, but at the end of the day, if you overutilize and overexpose Jaleel, that's going to lead to issues, and that's going to lead to the defense cluing in on, okay, if Jaleel's going to be on the field, he's getting the ball, we better just all key in on him, and that limits what you can do with him. So in order to get the most out of all three of our running backs, I totally agree with that sentiment. You have to start utilizing Samaje Perine more. Why is he so mad? Doesn't coach know that we won the game? I mean, we won the game, certainly, but we should have won it by a much wider margin than we did. We should have never been in the situation to have to kick the game-winning field goal. We should have cashed in more offensively at the end of the day. That's why I feel like Sean Payton was frustrated. Russell Wilson was kind of a roller coaster today. He had a couple good plays, but on the day, he did not play his best game whatsoever. Had some negative plays. So I can understand why Sean is a little frustrated, because like he said previously, I believe it was after the win against Green Bay, you're searching for kind of that perfect game. And the closest we've come to that so far was indeed that Kansas City game. But this was another one where you just kind of shot yourself in the foot multiple times, and there was a serious chance that Denver should have lost this game because of that missed field goal in the first try. That 12-men penalty literally bailed Denver out of big trouble. They would have lost the game otherwise. So Sean didn't know that the kick was wide right, but he knows that Denver was a lot closer in this game to losing it than they were to winning it. Buffalo basically lost the game for them. And hey, man, we'll take it, because a win is a win. But the Denver Broncos have got a lot to clean up. And I mean a lot to clean up if they're going to be serious about making a playoff run. McLaughlin is a little bit like Barry Sanders, big player, nothing. I mean, I got to admit, I'm not extremely familiar with Barry Sanders' game, aside from knowing he's obviously a Hall of Fame player. He's a little before my time, but that's definitely a very fair assessment, I feel like, of Jaleel McLaughlin. It's either a big play or nothing. Never would have expected to be 4-5, yeah, especially after the start to the season that we had, Tanner. I could not agree more. I don't think anybody expected that, but that just goes to show the resiliency of this team, and this team's got it right at the end of the day when it comes to coaching, and that's what matters, man. That's what matters. Wish we could have kept Murray. He had an okay game. He did, but I also think that the Broncos are solid where they are in the backfield with the personnel that they have. There just wasn't really room for Latavius Murray, but good for him, man. He's doing really well in Buffalo. He's still killing it after all these years in the league, and I'm really happy for Latavius Murray. How does Austin Eckler pass protect? Not fantastic, honestly. That's just a deficiency that a lot of smaller running backs are naturally going to have. It's a size disadvantage at the end of the day. It's not for a lack of effort or anything along those lines. It's just they don't have the frame going up against bigger defensive players. That's just kind of the unfortunate reality of smaller running backs, such as a Jaleel McLaughlin or a Phillip Lindsay or a Darren Sproles or somebody of that nature. Murray with Williams and Perine would be a good backfill, but you also need that explosive change of pace guy, and that's why Jaleel McLaughlin's here. They just have to utilize him correctly, and right now I just don't feel like he's being utilized correctly. Sean's play calling was suspect. He reminded me of Pete Carroll, all those runs and short passes. At the end of the day, it tells you that he doesn't trust his quarterback, and Russell, the way he's played, you can understand why Sean has that sentiment. I feel like Sean needs his quarterback, his guy, in order to truly be able to unlock his playbook. And as long as Russell Wilson is the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, this is the type of offense that we're going to see. And despite winning today, and even if we were to make the playoffs, guys, I still think that the Denver Broncos should move on from Russell Wilson. If they designate him as a post-June 1st cut, and it's kind of weird because they can designate him as a post-June 1st cut and still move on from him in March, they can eat a $35 million dead cap penalty in 2024. In 2025, they'll eat an $18 million dead cap penalty. Same in 2026. But in each of those years, they will save $40 million against the cap. This is the one exit path that you have to get out of Russell Wilson's contract, because if he's not moved and is still on the roster by day 4 of the 2024 league year, then his 2025 salary, valued at well over $50 million, I think over $55 million actually, becomes fully guaranteed. That is something the Broncos just cannot contend with. Russell's big money hasn't even really kicked in yet. This is the one opportunity that the Broncos have to move off from Russell Wilson, get somebody like a J.J. McCarthy in here, or a Michael Penix Jr. if you feel confident about his knee injuries. Bring in a veteran bridge quarterback on the cheap like a Gardner Minshew or somebody of that effect, and that's who you roll with heading into next year. I feel like this team could be even better if they have a quarterback under center that wasn't so limiting in what he can do. And unfortunately, that's just where Russell Wilson is at this point in his career. And you can go back and look at this channel. I've been one of Russell Wilson's bigger defenders throughout the entire year, but I think that we can very clearly see that this Broncos offense is going to be better off long-term without Russell Wilson and with a rookie quarterback who can execute a lot more of the stuff that Sean Payton needs him to execute at a higher level. So that is the argument that is there for the Broncos to move on from Russell Wilson, and I think it's a very strong one, and I think it's one that they have to consider. Even if they get themselves in position to make the playoffs, they still should move on from Russell Wilson. I think, too, the Buffalo Bills in 2017, they made the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor, but knew that they needed to upgrade at the quarterback position, so they traded up and got Josh Allen in the draft. The Chiefs, very similar thing with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson kind of feels like that's the direction things are going for Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. What are your thoughts on the win? Alex says, should we have lost? Yes, we definitely should have. I mean, literally, if we didn't get that 12-man penalty on the Bills, we would have lost that game. Lucky win for the Denver Broncos, but hey man, a win is a win, and it seriously puts us well in contention for the playoffs. If we can clean some of this stuff up, I mean, you've got a much better chance and opportunity to clean that stuff up now that you got the win, as opposed to having to clean it up coming off of a loss where you basically had to be almost perfect down the stretch. Now the Broncos actually have a little bit more wiggle room to make some mistakes, and they can still eke out a win here. Mims has become a reliable returner, so worth the pick. And I still think that Marvin Mims has a chance to make an impact on offense. He's just got to get over some of these rookie mistakes, rookie bugaboos, and the Broncos also have to put him in a better position to succeed. These end arounds, these jet sweeps, all that bull crap is not the best way that the Broncos are able to utilize Marvin Mims. We saw it in this game where he was dead to rights on that play. We've seen him turn the ball over on these end around plays. They just don't work, and I don't understand why Sean Payton continues to hammer those kind of plays and tries to get those kind of plays into the playbook when it just clearly isn't working. So I think there's a chance Marvin Mims can still make an impact on offense. He's clearly making an impact on special teams. I mean, that big return there really helped set up Denver to win this game. But at the end of the day, man, Marvin Mims has got to get over some of those mental errors and mental bugaboos. And if he can do that long term, then he can be a part of this offense. Pat Surtain sounds a lot like Champ Bailey with his confidence, and that's definitely something that you really love to see from a guy like PS2. Pete Carroll got a ring, should have been 2. Yeah, keep Russ. Players around him are average. I heard complaints about players not liking Sean's style. Randy Gregory, who they played big money, was gone soon. I think he's working at getting the cancer out of the locker room. Absolutely. I mean, very obvious those were the moves that were kind of made there with Randy Gregory and Frank Clark. Alex alluding to the same thing here. He was not a big Frank Clark fan. Those were the moves that really set forth the change for the Denver Broncos. Then obviously replacing Essane Bassi with Jaquan McMillan at nickel was one. Replacing why am I blanking right now? Replacing Damari Mathis with Fabian Moreau. Unfortunately, we did see a little bit of Mathis tonight in dime packages, which was not a great situation. But replacing Damari Mathis with Fabian Moreau, replacing Jonathan Harris with more Mike Purcell, less Matt Henningsen as well. Those have been kind of the big moves that were a little bit under the radar almost, that really made a big difference for this team. We got Mundugus Cravey in the house, my fellow co-host on the 5280 podcast. Hope you are doing well, man. Good to see you. Big win for us tonight. Jim Miller says no sacks tonight. That is probably one thing that was a little disappointing, but Josh Allen is a very hard quarterback to sack. He's able to get out of sacks really easily. And on that note, guys, huge credit to Russell Wilson, because we saw a couple of times where he was able to get out of the sack and almost look like vintage Russell Wilson a little bit. That touchdown throw to Cortland Sutton, a big example of that. Ronnie says, no, they're not going to move on from Russell Wilson. Buddy, then guys are going to regret it, or we should not trade it. I'm sorry, man. I'm not sure exactly what you're alluding to there, but obviously Ronnie is not in the camp of moving on from Russell Wilson, and I know there are going to be a lot of fans out there who share that sentiment, but at the end of the day, I'm somebody who can separate my fandom from my analysis, and it's pretty clear when you look at the tape that Russell Wilson needs to be cut while we can do so. I like Russ, but under his current financial terms, he's a detriment to this team. Thoughts on Stephon Diggs? I thought that the Broncos did a really good job covering him today. They did a good job of forcing Josh Allen to look towards other options, which was absolutely big time, man. That was one of the big things that we talked about in the pregame show, that the Broncos basically needed to play double bracket coverage, Dalton Kincaid and Stephon Diggs, and force Josh Allen to distribute the ball to other players. And we saw that with Gabe Davis, Deontay Hardy, and funny enough, 2 of Denver's turnovers came when Josh Allen was targeting those players. Gabe Davis had a really bad drop that led to Justin Simmons' pick, and then it was a bad throw by Josh Allen targeting, I believe it was Deontay Hardy, and he ended up getting the pick there. Again, just really bad throw from Josh Allen. So we forced Buffalo to have to go to those other targets tonight, and we made them pay for it. That was exactly the defensive game plan that I wanted to see, and we really executed it to a T. Jeff says, did Drew Sanders play at all? I did not see him out there, so I'm going to probably lean towards no. We'll get a official count of snaps tomorrow, but aside from special teams, I don't think we saw a whole lot of Drew Sanders out there. If a quarterback is available you like, or if a quarterback you like is available, pick him in the draft. Yeah, that's what the Broncos are going to do. I could very easily see, a J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan, or Michael Penix Jr. Out of Washington, or even a Cam Ward out of Washington State. He's a quarterback that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, that I think could be talked about with some first-round pedigree. So those are your potential options right now. Obviously, we're far away now from the Drake May, Caleb Williams conversations with Denver winning 3 games in a row, but there are still quarterbacks out there that are very intriguing that I think would be worth spending a first-round pick on if you are the Denver Broncos, and those are the 3 guys I alluded to. I'd probably say my number 1 choice would be McCarthy, my number 2 choice would be Ward, and then I'm just really concerned about Michael Penix's health. He's had 2 ACL injuries, and he's blown out both of his shoulders. That's a problem that I think is going to end up carrying over into the NFL. a clear indicator of future injury is past injury. So I'm staying away from Michael Penix Jr. unless you're really, really confident about the medicals. So again, I'm probably looking towards like a JJ McCarthy or maybe a Cam Ward or something like that for the Denver Broncos moving forward. Is this my full-time job? No, it is not my full-time job, but I'm working towards it becoming my full-time job. I'm hoping that we can start really getting YouTube rolling a little bit more and we can start doing this full-time. So I do dedicate a lot of time into this. So I'm hoping that very soon it can officially become my full-time job. But whenever people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them this. I do work fast food outside of this, but I basically consider this like my full-time job. Russ, with the new contract, is just a financial anchor to set up the Broncos' long-term success. Unless restructures out of the kindness of his heart, then he's got to be cut. I agree, Evan. And I don't think Russell Wilson would restructure out of the kindness of his heart. And it wouldn't be able to be a traditional restructure. That would just create more guaranteed money down the road. It would basically have to be ripping up his current contract and bringing him back on like a 1-year, $35 million deal fully guaranteed. That's basically the equivalent of the dead cap that the Broncos would have to eat in order to cut Russell Wilson. So maybe there's a scenario where Russ stays on a 1-year, $35 million fully guaranteed deal. But that's the only scenario where I think Russell Wilson stays next year. And that's a very unlikely scenario, in my opinion. Show Simmons some love. Yeah, man, I already did, but I'll give him a little more. Justin Simmons was absolutely phenomenal in this game. Obviously had the interception. He was Justin Simmons, man. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. Got another turnover in his bag today. This defense has completely turned around their fortunes ever since Justin Simmons was reinserted into the lineup. That Miami game, a big part of that game getting so out of hand was Justin Simmons not being on the field. I'm so glad that the Broncos didn't trade him away or anybody of that nature, or anything of that nature. I'm just so happy Justin Simmons is playing as well as he is. I mean, I understand you feel that way, Ronnie, but at the end of the day, I happen to disagree with you, and that's the beauty of this platform, man. We're all allowed to disagree and have our own opinions. I personally think that the best move for the Broncos long-term is to cut Russell Wilson. It's perfectly okay if you disagree with me. That is totally cool. Let's pick Milton from Tennessee in the second round. Hopefully we can draft a quarterback that can read defensive schemes quickly. Say we cut Russ. Do you see him retiring or going to another team? I don't see Russell retiring, so he's probably going to try to go to another team. I'm going to be interested to see what other team would be interested in bringing in Russell Wilson at this point in his career. That's something that's going to be very interesting, what kind of market there would be for Russell Wilson, but I do not see him retiring. Simmons is Hall of Fame material if he keeps it up 3 or 4 years. Yeah, 100%, man. And there have been points in time where I've been hard on Justin Simmons, but he really is kind of the glue that helps hold this defense together, and I can acknowledge that. Yeah, I don't think Drew Sanders got a whole lot of snaps in this one. I did not see him play a whole lot of snaps. So we'll see the official snap counts tomorrow. Usually Mike Kliss tweets them out, but I did not see Drew Sanders get a whole lot of snaps in this one. WVC says, it's pretty much up to Sean, not us, and him and Russ aren't compatible. You can see it. Sean doesn't trust Russ. Russ will win another Super Bowl. I don't know about that. I don't necessarily think Russ is going to win another Super Bowl, but it's very clear that him and Sean are not quite on the same page. Sean needs a quarterback that can execute his offense. Jeff says Russ has an ego. Tebow was religious and distracted some, but Russ wants the same image. He does not act the way he should. Look, Russell Wilson, say what you want about his personality and all that stuff, but I don't think that has much to do with his play on the field. I don't hold any of his personality or any of that stuff against him. At the end of the day, his performance is not backing up the amount of money that he is currently making, and that's why I'm looking to move on from him, because at the end of the day, his money is only going to continue to be of detriment to the Denver Broncos. It's only going to hamstring us further and further. So this is the point in time where it's basically now or never for the Denver Broncos to move on from Russell Wilson, and that's why I say it's got to be now. Not crazy about Russ, but I did love the way he actually protected the ball tonight. He did do a good job of that. He sensed the rush well, which has been an issue for him over the course of this season. He hasn't had exactly the greatest internal clock, but he did do a pretty good job in this one. He took off, used his legs when he needed to. So overall, man, Russell Wilson, his work today was kind of a mixed bag, but he did do ultimately enough for the Denver Broncos to get this dub. And like I said earlier, guys, this win gives the Broncos a lot more flexibility. It basically gives them the freedom to lose the Houston game and the Detroit game and still be in position to make the playoffs, especially with some of the losses that we've seen teams in the AFC take, such as Buffalo tonight, Buffalo last week as well against Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati took a bad loss of their own yesterday against the Houston Texans, who have been a really, really tough team. So, yeah, man, this was just one that gives the Broncos a lot more flexibility heading into this final portion of the season and gives them the freedom to go out and potentially lose the Houston game and the Detroit game and still be in position to make the playoffs, which is absolutely huge. If you put Russell Wilson with the 49ers, maybe even the Steelers or Dolphins, he does win a Super Bowl. But thing is, I don't see any of those teams pursuing Russell Wilson. So, yeah, maybe if you put him in that kind of situation, but those kind of teams would have a similar level of success with a younger and cheaper quarterback, just like the 49ers are with Brock Purdy. So, at that rate, putting Russell Wilson into that situation is really not an ideal situation for that team, if that makes any sense. I agree that his play not being up to his contract is the biggest anchor. With the right team, he might do well, but I don't think he improves a team like Manning did. We got Steelers Nation Australia in the house. Mark, thank you so much for the $5, dude. Really appreciate you, brother. Josh Allen is overrated, Mr. Turnover. Allen did not play a good game tonight. His turnovers have been the biggest issue throughout his entire career. So, yeah, man, Josh Allen is definitely starting to work his way into that overrated conversation. He makes awesome plays, but he also has way too many boneheaded turnovers. I made a comparison earlier that Josh Allen is almost like the modern-day Brett Favre. Houston might be easy, Jim says. Rookie quarterback. CJ Stroud has not been playing like a rookie, though. If you go look and see how CJ Stroud's been playing, he's played absolutely incredible. One of the best rookie seasons from a quarterback that we've ever seen. Houston is not going to be a walk in the park at all. Robert says, does Kareem Jackson return for the Vikings game? Yes, he does. He will be back. And with PJ Locke injured in this game, that could potentially mean Kareem Jackson's going to be inserted back into the starting safety spot, which I'm not exactly the biggest fan of. We've talked about it quite a bit on the channel, how I strongly believe the Broncos should turn to PJ Locke, assuming that he's healthy, as the full-time starter at safety, and you can basically relegate Kareem Jackson to sort of a niche role as a dime backer, a hard hitter near the line of scrimmage. But unfortunately, with this PJ Locke injury, that kind of changes the trajectory of that a little bit, because, I mean, I think that at this point in his career, Kareem Jackson's a little bit of a liability back in coverage. I don't really feel confident with Kareem back there. I'm hoping this injury to PJ Locke isn't overtly serious, because if he's healthy, he 100% deserves to be the starter at safety. You're not going to see Kareem Jackson get that pick on Jordan Love in that Green Bay game that PJ Locke got to seal the game. That's just something you're not going to see Kareem Jackson do. And with the Broncos team that's still trying to figure out who's going to be part of this team long term, we obviously know that at 35 years old, Kareem Jackson is not going to be a long-term part of this team. So you have to see if PJ Locke can be that long-term starter at safety. And if he can, that's awesome. So we got to at least give him that opportunity. That injury certainly hurt because we had to insert Delarian Turner-Yell in at safety, and that caused us to get picked on in the secondary a couple of times. Not ideal at all. You have to cut Russell Wilson, Daryl says. He doesn't know how to read today's defensive schemes. Mark says people pick on Kenny Pickett, but he doesn't turn the football over. I mean, Kenny Pickett, I think, has his fair share of issues, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, man, Josh Allen, when you are a quarterback that's held to the high pedigree that he is and somebody who's making the amount of money that he is, you cannot have those boneheaded turnovers. I think that the Bills actually did a pretty good job of running the football, so you can't even really put it on the Bills for forcing Josh to play hero ball. He was just trying to do too much at the end of the day, and it cost the Bills. Do you think Vance Joseph is safe for next year? I think so. I think Vance Joseph has really turned things around on defense. Unless we have just another epic collapse to end the year and we have like another 70-20 game or something along those lines, then I don't see a scenario where Vance Joseph goes. I think he's probably safe. I like Simmons, Stearns, and Locke out of our safeties. And yeah, pivoting to Caden Stearns, I mean, he was set to be our starting safety this year, and we were indeed going to relegate Kareem Jackson to just kind of a dime back role. Unfortunately, Caden Stearns got injured and was out for the season by week 1, and we were forced to pivot back to Kareem Jackson. But I feel like if PJ Locke would have been healthy at that point in time, the Broncos would have inserted him to the starting lineup over Kareem Jackson. So that's kind of the thing right there, man. I really, really hope that this PJ Locke injury isn't serious because he's just played some really, really phenomenal football for us. It was expected to have more turnovers under Vance because his scheme and play calling, but I don't see him here next year. The only scenario I think where Vance Joseph might be gone is if Dennis Allen gets fired as the Saints head coach. Sean Payton might want to reunite with Dennis Allen, but that would basically require the Broncos to commit to a scheme change because Dennis Allen runs a base 4-3 and the Broncos have run a base 3-4 ever since 2015 when we transitioned from Jack Del Rio to Wade Phillips. So I don't know if that would be an option. I think Vance Joseph has done enough to secure his future here for at least one more year. Again, unless the Broncos want to go in the direction of Dennis Allen, but first he's got to get fired by New Orleans. That's several steps down the road. For now, Vance Joseph is going to be here through the end of the year, obviously. At the end of the year, we can then start to have the conversation on Vance again. He's done some really good stuff in these last couple of games, so that's something that is in favor of Vance 100%. Peyton Manning was loving watching the Broncos. Yeah, I bet the Manning cast was really good. I know he had Patrick Mahomes on tonight. He had Lindsey Vonn and Kyle Brandt, notorious Broncos hater Kyle Brandt on. So I have to imagine that was probably a fun broadcast. Obviously, didn't get to watch the Manning cast tonight, but I'll go back a little bit later and watch some of the highlights from the Manning cast, like the Mahomes interview and all that stuff. And Mahomes was very complimentary of the Broncos after facing them 2 weeks ago, and obviously taking his first loss ever to the Denver Broncos 2 weeks ago. He said that this team is going to be very, very tough to beat down the road, and he knows that firsthand, and now the Bills just got a taste of that. Now we've got the Minnesota Vikings coming up, Sunday Night Football at home. Again, we've talked about the Vikings quite a bit earlier where they've been a very frisky opponent, especially ever since Josh Jacobs got inserted at quarterback. We all thought that the Vikings season was going to be down the toilet by the time, or at the point where Kirk Cousins had torn his Achilles, but in the last couple of weeks, they've really gotten something going with Josh Jacobs. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be intriguing to see what type of Vikings team shows up, especially riding high coming off of 3 big wins in a row against Green Bay, Atlanta, and New Orleans. So, yeah, man, this is going to be a fun primetime matchup, Sunday Night Football. Since it is a home game, I will be at that game, but we'll be bringing you live coverage, pregame and postgame from the stadium, as we always do, guys. So hope you guys can be on the lookout for that. Where are our tight ends? That's one big surprise I feel like from this year, was that the Broncos have just not really utilized their tight ends, but right now they just don't have a difference maker at tight end. Adam Troutman has not played well. Greg Dulcich is hurt. Hopefully the Broncos will start utilizing the tight end position a little bit more once they get Greg Dulcich back in the fold here in a couple of weeks. I believe Dulcich is going to have to miss one more game, and then we can get him back. So we can possibly have Greg Dulcich back for the Cleveland Browns game. And, yep, Josh Allen is starting to become the new modern Brett Favre, Daryl, 100%. That was the same comparison that I had earlier. But, yeah, I agree. We definitely need to start utilizing the tight ends more, and that starts first with the Broncos getting Greg Dulcich back. What was interesting tonight was they elected to deactivate Nate Atkins, and they called up Lucas Kroll from the practice squad, so maybe they were trying to utilize Kroll to get more production out of the tight end position. All right, guys, we are at the hour mark here on the post-game stream, so we're going to start to wrap things up. Be sure to leave a like on this stream, and I know that this is going to be a win a lot of Broncos country is excited about. It should have been less of a hard-fought victory than it was. We shouldn't have had to pull a bunch of teeth in order to get to this win, but we were able to get there, guys. We overcame our self-inflicted wounds, our penalties on offense, some of Russell Wilson's negative plays. We were able to force Josh Allen into several key mistakes. The Buffalo Bills did a much better job at shooting themselves in the foot than the Denver Broncos did shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, literally that 12-men penalty is what lost the game for the Buffalo Bills. The Broncos had missed the kick there at the end with Will Lutz, and Buffalo gifted Denver another chance. Of course, they're not going to screw up their second chance right there. What's up with the Jalen Virgil, the receiver? He's unfortunately out for the season. He suffered a season-ending injury in our second preseason game against the 49ers. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and dip out of here and get some videos up on this. Be sure to leave a like on this stream, guys, as well as subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell right next to the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are 2 free and easy ways to show your support. Helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. Thank you so much to Mark for the $5. Thank you so much to Tony for the $10. Really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much to all the mods. Vaughn, Jess, Mark again. Thank you so much to Ronnie, Daryl, Steven, everybody, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate you. And until next time, guys, after